أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على رسولنا محمد وعلى آله وأصحابه وأتباعه وسلم رب اشرح لي صدري ويسر لي أمري واحلل عقدة من لساني يفقه قولي اللهم أرنا الحق حقا وارزقنا اتباعه وأرنا الباطل باطلا وارزقنا اجتنابه آمين والحمد لله رب العالمين. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullah. Let's continue our discussion on the miraculousness of Quran, inshallah. So we have been studying 25th word, first light, second ray, and we came to the end of this portion with fifth glow. I'm directly jumping into the text. It's going to be almost 2 pages of a read. Then inshallah we can come back and discuss. Fifth glow. This is the extraordinary comprehensiveness of the Quran in regard to its aims and subjects, meanings and styles, and its subtle qualities and fine virtues. Indeed, if the surahs and verses of the Quran of miraculous exposition are studied carefully, and especially the openings of the surahs and the beginning and ends of the verses, it will be seen that although it gathers together all the categories of rhetoric, all the parts of fine speech, all the classes of elevated styles, all the sorts of fine morality, all the summaries of the sciences relating to the universe, all the indexes of divine knowledge, all the beneficial rules for individual and human social life, and all the luminous laws of the exalted physical sciences, not a trace of confusion is apparent. In truth, to gather together in one place this many different categories of knowledge, and not to cause any dispute or difficulty, can only be the work of an overwhelming miraculous order. In truth, to gather together in one place this many different categories of knowledge, and not to cause any dispute or difficulty, can only be the work of an overwhelming miraculous order. Then, together with the order within this comprehensiveness, as is expounded and proved in the previous 24 words, to rend the veils of habitual and commonplace, which are the source of compounded ignorance, and to draw out the wonders concealed beneath them and display them, to smash with the diamond sword of proof the idol of nature, to smash with the diamond sword of proof the idol of nature, which is the source of misguidance, to scatter with thunderous trumpet blasts the dense layers of the sleep of heedlessness, and to uncover and reveal the obscure talisman of being and the strange riddle of the creation of the world, before which human philosophy and science have remained impotent, is most surely only the wondrous work of a wonder worker like the Quran. The Quran, which sees reality, is familiar with the unseen, bestows guidance, and shows the truth. This most surely can only be the wondrous work of a wonder worker like the Quran. The Quran, which sees reality, is familiar with the unseen, bestows guidance, and shows the truth. If the Quran's verses are considered carefully and fairly, it will be seen that they do not resemble a gradual chain of thought, following one or two aims like other books. For the Quran's manner is sudden and instantaneous. It is inspired on the moment. Its mark is that all its aspects arrive together, but independently from distant places, a most serious and important discourse, which comes singly and concisely. Yes, who is there apart from the universe's creator that could give a discourse concerned to this degree with the universe and the creator of the universe? Yes, who is there apart from the universe's creator that could give a discourse concerned to this degree with the universe and the creator of the universe, who could step beyond his mark to an infinite degree and make the all-glorious creator speak according to his own whims. Is in here referring to whoever, a person. Who could step beyond his mark to an infinite degree and make the all-glorious creator speak according to his own whims, then make the universe speak the truth. Yes, in the Quran, the universe's maker is seen to be speaking and making others speak most seriously and truthfully, and in elevated and true fashion. There is no sign at all to suggest imitation. He speaks and makes speak. If to suppose the impossible, someone like Musaylimah was to step beyond his mark to an infinite degree. Musaylimah is a man at the time of Prophet ﷺ who claimed to be a messenger also and came up with some poems which had rhyme. So now the author is referring to that man. If, to suppose the impossible, someone like Musaylimah was to step beyond his mark to an infinite degree, and by way of imitation make the all-glorious creator, the sublime and majestic one, speak according to his own ideas, and the universe as well, there certainly would be thousands of signs of imitation and indications of falsehood. For when the contemptible assume the manner of the lofty, their every action shows up their pretense. So consider carefully these verses which proclaim this fact with an oath. By the star when it goes down, your companion is neither astray nor being misled, nor does he say aught of his own desire. It is no less than revelation inspired. And those last verses are from Surah Najm. So when Najmi إذا هوى, by the star as it goes down, as it sets. ما ضل صاحبكم وما غوى, your friend has not gone astray, nor has he erred. وما ينطق عن الهوى, nor does he speak out of desire. إن هو إلا وحي يوحى, it is but a revelation revealed. And it goes on. So inshallah, let's go back to the beginning, but it looks like my understanding is the author is making this point and saying that as if he was inspired by these verses to also come up with this point that he is making here. So inshallah, eventually we will carefully consider these verses and how he is making the connections with what he said. Okay. So feel free to make your comment or ask any questions, please. Just a second. Okay, so I am now starting from the beginning again. This time I'll be reading a little bit slow and sharing what I understand, and please chime in with your comments. So this time we are talking about the extraordinary comprehensiveness of the Quran in regard to its aims and subjects, meanings and styles, and its subtle qualities and fine virtues. Indeed, if the surahs and verses of the Quran of miraculous exposition are studied carefully, and especially the openings of the surahs and the beginnings and ends of the verses, it will be seen that although it gathers together all the categories of rhetoric, all the parts of fine speech, all the classes of elevated styles, all the sorts of fine morality, all the summaries of the sciences relating to the universe, all the indexes of divine knowledge, all the beneficial rules for individual and human social life, and all the luminous laws of the exalted physical sciences, not a trace of confusion is apparent. In truth, to gather together in one place this many different categories of knowledge and not to cause any dispute or difficulty can only be the work of an overwhelming, miraculous order. So I think this last sentence is summarizing the point that author is making in here. Quran is as it should be, like as speech of God should be. Talk about everything that I observe, or uh, since human is such a complex creation or complex thing, and the rest of the universe is equally complex, and human, if you think about it as if human is the has the receivers and the universe has the sources. Like if I have an antenna and then if there is some wireless signal out there, I am the receiver and there is something in the outside world for me to receive. So human is like that. I have sight, I have hearing, I have taste, and in the outside world, everything that are matching with those uh, aspects in me are also existing. So as much as I am complex, the universe is complex. And me being that much complex, my creator must talk to me to address all aspects of me. That would mean in his speech, there are going to be tons of different aspects, tons of different topics. So if my intellect wants very crystal clear descriptions and definitions and tangible explanations, my heart would be interested in hearing something that touches my feelings, mercy, for example. Or there are going to be other parts of me which asks for more and more. I would like to hear about an answer to my desire for eternity, for example. So as human is complex, speech of God should be complex. But that means it needs to contain a lot of things. But in books, for example, that we get to see, there is one or two central topic, and this, let's say the author is an expert engineer or an expert social scientist, let's say psychiatrist or psychologist. So, and even a very subfield of those domains. And although that person might also get to know a little bit about arts and the other sciences, uh, if that person starts talking about those other sciences, either there are going to be errors or there are going to be very brief and superficial. And I would recognize superficiality of that person if I'm an expert on that domain by how he or she is utilizing examples out of place. Uh, like to give a personal example. So since my childhood, I was very much into computers. When I was going to discussions, brothers would love to give examples from computers so that I'm going to understand it better. But I don't remember a case in which it helped actually, because those examples were always out of place, and it was just raising more confusion in me rather than helping me. So because those people were not experts of computer, or I was not expert either, but they didn't know even as much as I knew. So this is why you can't spot the problem if that person is not an expert or knowledgeable enough in that domain, but still giving an example from that domain, you would say that, well, it's out of place here. It didn't explain anything really. It just made more confusion. So this is why people would be more comfortable if they are trying to write a book in which they would like to be reaching a wide audience. They shouldn't get out of their comfort zone. If they do, then careful people will catch it up. So, but Quran is talking about a lot of topics, and it must also, like speech of God, must contain so many things. But gathering together in a single place this many different categories of knowledge, and not to cause any dispute or difficulty. So I would like to underline this causing dispute and difficulty part, because just think about it very simply. Let's say to simplify the list, only think about the 6 pillars of belief, like belief in God, belief in speech of God, scriptures, then angels, then prophets, then resurrection, and then there is divine determining. So these are actually 6 huge topics. So coming up with a worldview in which these 6 are perfectly aligned with each other, and it's also perfectly aligned with the creation out there and also my creation as a human. It's a big job actually to be able to do such a thing. As the author will give a reference to sciences and philosophy, no such model in which things are being preserved within a balance are available to human other than Quran's suggestion. How? For example, there is one philosophy which says, well, just live the moment. There is no purpose in life and just enjoy the moment. For example, this sort of a philosophy is looking at it from a joy point of view. Yes, human is a machine, if you would like to take it as such, which can enjoy the moment. But human is also has another aspect, which is seeking for wisdom, seeking for meaning. Another aspect, which is being very much hurt by death. So simply focusing on one aspect of human, which is taking the joy, and underlining this part and overemphasizing this part, it's just simply not addressing humans' needs. This is why eventually, if I follow such a path and still, even if at least occasionally think, life becomes unbearable. I have to just disable my mind. I have to disable my other feelings other than the joy. I have to disable my worries, if possible, about future. Since this is almost impossible, then all the problems start kicking in. So I'm pausing here. Any comments about this part? Okay, so I continue.
Assalamu alaikum. We apologize for leaving you hanging. We were helping our children, and
okay,
now we're settled. And so the way I like to read from the words is to take it into my own life and for my, and try to be as honest with myself as possible. If I have also experienced what my brother here is saying and what he's experienced, and and if I can confirm it, and I believe him from what he's saying, but and I appreciate what he's saying from his own point of view, but I have not yet come to a point where I am not confused. For example, when I read certain verses, certain ayah, and I still sit with that though, because that doesn't make me walk away. Because the way that what I can confirm is that the way that the Quran has spoken to me in the crucial, pillars of the pillars of belief, those matters, I do. I can say that I have an enormous amount of. I can say that the ayah have taught me so much that I can now see the world in a way of which it's very hard not to believe anymore. I see the belief at starting to really change, transform me, the way that I view the world. from the everything from and everything goes together from, the angels make sense in the context of, a creator who's commanding all now. Divine decree makes sense from the point of view of a creator that is all knowing now. The purpose of my life makes sense from the point of view of an all compassionate, all merciful creator now. But there's still some, I know I still have to admit to like the fact that I'm still not at this level that the author is at. I still have suspicions about certain ayah that it's not like I'm even actively attacking them or have any agenda. It's simply that they still confuse me, like any negative agenda for, sliding the Quran or anything like that, astaghfirullah. It's simply that I'm still not at peace. Like when I read them, they still don't align with Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim. And so that is still something that's in process for me. And I'm just being honest about that. And so because of that, I can't confirm that there's not a trace of confusion because I haven't experienced that yet.
And if I can comment.
Yeah.
So when referring to a trace of confusion or not having a trace of confusion, maybe it's a little bit too strong for me. It's something that for me to accept that about myself, because confusion is not from the perspective of the author or the speaker or of the Quran, it's of me. So when I think of myself being confused, I must admit that I will always be confused. I don't have the goal of not being confused about anything because I don't think that's achievable. What I do have a goal of is being satisfied in what matters the most in life. Because if that was a goal, I don't think in my lifetime, at least in this lifetime, I could achieve that state. And if I were to think that I could, I would attribute arrogance to myself. I feel like that's not something.
What is your definition of confusion? That's often people aren't necessarily agreeing on the same words.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah. So confusion is really something that perhaps is not that I'm unsure about. That is what I'm referring to as confusion. Mm-hmm. So it wouldn't necessarily be confusion about my existence, and that's what I'm leading to is there wouldn't be confusion about my purpose, because these are all wonderful blessings of the Quran that we have, which really these answers aren't found in a satisfying manner anywhere else that we've looked. So yes, certainly there's not confusion about our existence, but when in the context of this paragraph, it's talking about summaries of the sciences of the universe, indexes of divine knowledge, beneficial rules for individual and human social life, all the luminous laws of exalted physical sciences. I mean, there are drastic spectrums of diverse perspectives in politics and morality and ethics and even science and humanity and social societies, and the list goes on and on. There's it's something. It's part of the process of growth. Is for us to understand ourselves and our Lord through this experience we call life. I think for me, it's very difficult to say that for the reader, the Quran is something that I can read without a trace of confusion, right?
Jazakallah khairan. Yes, I mean, very beautiful points, and thank you for the honesty. Yes. So I think in here, when the author says not a trace of confusion is apparent, what I understand from here is he is saying that I do not observe any contradiction. So I might be confused. I might not be understanding some parts of it. but maybe the question is, if I see confusion or contradiction, let me put it this way, because me being confused or me not understanding something, so just to be more explicit, because I agree with the last point of Sister Inabe, I think, saying that what is your definition of confusion? So if it's me not understanding some claims of the Quran, so I think this might be one part. This is what I understand from her point, actually. There are some parts which maybe I'm not comfortable with yet. Quran is making a comment, or let's say we are living in a certain society in which there are certain assumptions that I do not even question, or I either do not question or I do not think about even questioning it. I take them for granted because I am born into these as my norms. And what Quran is using is just going against those norms. So I'm not feeling comfortable with this sort of a language, maybe, just giving an example. So this might be the case for sure. And but for the point of, is it arrogant to say what author is saying in here, or is it unachievable for a human? I'm not sure about that part. Maybe for bits and pieces in which, for example, as I was trying to give a simple example of 6 pillars of belief, if I can comfortably form a worldview which is in harmony with those 6 pillars, like I have a understanding of the world in which those 6 pillars are perfectly in harmony with each other, in perfectly harmony in with the creation and also with me. Meaning, to give a specific example, let's say divine determining seems to be the toughest one, or the angels. So if I'm able to live in a world in which I can have conversation with angels, or I can say that definitely this fits perfectly to the world that I live in, such a thing must exist, or divine determining, when it comes to divine determining, if somehow I'm able to solve the contradiction of, oh, I do it versus no, God decrees it, sort of conflicts, maybe I might have. But in the light of the Quran, if I am solving majority of my problems, ironing them out, and then still I will definitely have something incomplete, so much so that it's going to be expanded over time. This is why I am being given life. I mean, if opening the Quran, I solved all my problems in 10 years, then that means I encapsulated the absolute, which would be a contradiction in the first place. But I think what I might get from author's point in here is, if I do not see those contradictions, huge contradictions, then for the parts after observing it providing me answers for so many of my questions, wherever I come now to see some sort of a unexpected approach, or something that doesn't 100% fit into me, as Sister Anaba was saying, I would put a question mark there rather than a exclamation mark. What I mean by that is, actually, when I'm studying Quran, or also this author's book, his writings are also quite complex relative to many of the authors that I read before. So initially, when I was reading, I was just saying that, oh, he missed the point here. Or, oh yeah, this was, at his time, such a knowledge was not available. This is why he is speaking as such. The same can be applied to the Quran. If I'm approaching Quran as a man's speech, I can say that, oh yeah, he's talking about the camels and everything because this was written 14 centuries ago. And I can simply jump over it and say, okay, let me see what's coming next. But once I start seeing how perfectly it's answering my questions, rather than putting an exclamation mark, now I get the habit of putting a question mark saying, well, there's something extraordinary going on in here. And to my superficial understanding, it doesn't fit. But since many of such exclamation marks that I put in the past turned into tick marks and put me into awe, saying that, wow, this was used in here or spoken like that and for such a purpose. Now, whenever I get to see some unexpected use of either an example or a claim or just the method is different, style of speech is different, I put a question mark with the expectation that much more must come out of here because the speaker gets out of his way in here and uses an interesting, or maybe to put it more honestly, awkward speech. So something deeper is going on in here. And I think this might be the reason that the author keeps saying in this part, if these surahs are studied carefully. He says it once in here, in next page, he says it, I guess, twice as well. And as much as I carefully, in my experience, study them carefully, I realize my shortcoming of, oh, I'm now being in total awe to say that, mashallah, this can only be speech of God. But yeah, this is, of course, a long journey for all of us, and it should take a lifetime. And I believe this is why we are being given life. If this journey if it was achievable to be finished in 5 years, 10 years, then the rest of the life shouldn't be given. The Creator shouldn't waste time, I would say. Life is being given to understand the speech and to be in connection with the Creator. So I'm just filling in time with the hope that you're going to raise your hands. If not, I will continue with the next paragraph. Okay.
Assalamu alaikum, Brother Usman. I
Wa alaikum
think,
assalam. Yep.
and everybody, beautifully said, because I recently got a copy of the English translation of Quran, which is by a new translation by M.A.S. Abdul Halim, Oxford World Classics. And as I try to, because my native language is Urdu, and my other Quran translations that I have are on my phone, the app is different than this translation. And I know just a little bit of Arabic words, Quranic Arabic words, and their meaning, because they have been frequently used, alhamdulillah, in Quran. And I realize that what this particular word is telling us, this admiration and awe and an all-consuming kind of an absorbing, ultimately absorbing praise for Quran's capacity to, even when, as the title of your heads up notification today was also this, that Quran's ayat may not sound like that they are making a sense in a flow, but yet in each and every ayah there is a distinct message or a sign, and raveling it and unraveling it and then going back to Quran and interacting with it again, and it interacts with us back again based on that day. Obviously the core and the message remains the same as Allah Ta'ala intended, and it is up to our individual lives and influences on our minds that particular moment when we are reading the Quran, that how does it impact us? How do we allow ourselves to get closer to Quran, and by virtue of Quran get closer to Allah Ta'ala, both in our spirit, in understanding our purpose, and also in becoming more practical, in becoming Quranic in our behaviors, in our intentions, in our words, in our questions, in our deeds and habits and behaviors. So in that sense, I definitely agree that one short lifetime perhaps is not enough, because Allah Ta'ala says for Quran himself that if it was revealed on a mountain, the mountain will crumble. And to Hazrat Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, in many places Allah Ta'ala says, and this is an easy Quran, this is an Arabic language, and at the same time in other ayats Allah Ta'ala says that be patient with it, be gradual in reading it, because it is a heavy word. It has weight, it has substance in it. And so in that sense, the way I interact with Quran and the way I really I strive, I should say, humbly, to try to make sense of the ayats, to get my frame of reference correct in life, given my life experience, given my illness, my recent losses, my sense of going forward with the rest of my time on earth. Alhamdulillah, this is indeed it's like a life-saving raft for me in the sea of time on earth, I should say. Jazakallah for going over this portion of the tafsir by Imam Nur Sidi.
Alhamdulillah. Jazakallah khairan. Jazakallah khairan for sharing that. Yeah. So, and also in here, I guess the author, as he is going to tie it back to at the very conclusion part, what we are looking at here is Quran's miraculousness, miraculous meaning that like mu'jiza means anybody else would be incapable of doing it. Like it's coming from ajz, poverty, impotence. So such a comprehensive, talking about everything, using all different styles, talking about multiple topics, multiple sciences, putting all of them together in a single place without contradiction is beyond human capacity. I guess this is what we are observing or attempting to observe. So, and definitely, yes, I agree with Shahrani family's comments again, just to reiterate. It's not immediately apparent to me, but at least on the level of such a thing, to the extent that I'm able to see, is not apparent in humans' words. Not if there were so many topics being discussed in a book, it would be just become a soup of different ideas which contradict with each other. But to the extent that I see in the Quran, there is harmony, but there are parts which are becoming challenging to me. But yet, over time, I am seeing that those points are being resolved, which gives me the impression that it's on me that I need to resolve more points on my way. And this is why I would like to keep working on it, because so far I have been benefiting from it. And as I would resolve more of those, this is the thing that's going to give me the satisfaction that I'm seeking for. Because when I was taking calculus in the college, yes, like out of the high school, I was not immediately able to solve calculus problems. But as I kept studying, I was able to solve those problems. So I guess the same sort of approach would apply here. Shahrani family, please go ahead.
Just a few thoughts on this. And one is, if we can read this also from the perspective of the Quran as revelation, but also the Quran as the creation. Right. So our existence and our experiences in terms of our day-to-day life and the creation around us as the Quran that we experience, because both of those point to the same thing. And so that's just maybe one way to also look at this, a different perspective maybe. But I was also going to say, related to these comments and these claims, this is very clearly from the Quran itself. This is inspired from the Quran itself. As you had mentioned, obviously there's the ayat about someone else not being able to, no human being able to, or even if human came together, they couldn't reproduce this. But in addition to that, there's the emphasis on reflection. There's the emphasis on thinking, and not being led to the right path is sometimes attributed to ignorance, to just not knowing something. And so there's this emphasis that, hey, this is entirely coherent from the Quran itself, and that is being repeated to us in the form of this tafsir. Alhamdulillah.
Jazakallah khairan. Yes. Alhamdulillah. So I continue with the next paragraph. Then, together with the order within this comprehensiveness, as is expounded and proved in the previous 24 words, to rend the veils of the habitual and commonplace, which are the source of compounded ignorance, and to draw out the wonders concealed beneath them and display them. So then he will start talking about some other aspects. So there is this comprehensiveness, but within this comprehensiveness, there's something more. So rending the veils of the habitual and commonplace, which are the source of compounded ignorance, and to draw out the wonders concealed beneath them and display them. So what I understand, I will just go through them with some examples to make it easier for myself. So let's say, I simply say it rains. It is habitual for me that rain is coming down from the skies. I don't even give it a second thought. Or I say, well, it's just thunder. Or I say, well, I put the seed and seeds are coming out. These are very habitual things. Or I say, I went and drank water and now I quenched my thirst. But those very habitual things, behind those habitual things are treasures which are under my compounded ignorance. They are being hidden to me. But Quran is rending the veils. So it is as if, as they would say, smashing the diamond sword of proof, the idol of nature. It's going to tear down those veils to me and show the truth to me. For example, it will say, then call for the water. When the water is flowing, call to the water so that it comes to you. On the surface, it sounds very silly. Like, of course, water never comes to me. I mean, calling water and water will come to me. What do you mean? But this is the point. Like, it will never come to you, yet I am being thankful to Mother Nature or the nature of water itself that it's quenching me. So it says, well, it is unaware of you. It doesn't listen to you. It doesn't know you, love you, or anything like that, but you are thinking that your needs are being satisfied by it. So very simple language, but very fundamental mistakes are being hidden under my ignorance. So Quran, by using this very simple language, inviting me to wake up from that sleep of ignorance. And even doing this using a super simple language makes it much more miraculous. Because after understanding such topics, maybe when you are going to explain it to somebody else, you might be using much more complicated language. This is how it is with me, for example. To be able to simply explain something to somebody else, I'm looking to myself. If I'm super familiar and super comfortable with a topic, then only I can explain it in a simplified language to others. If I barely understood something, then when I'm going to explain to somebody else, I am just explaining it in very complicated ways. So Quran's simple language for explaining such matters is also showing another miraculous aspect of it. And then he says to smash with the diamond sword of proof the idol of nature, which is the source of misguidance, to scatter with thunderous trumpet blasts the dense layer of the sleep of heedlessness. And of course, in between the lines, I think author is giving some hints or alluding to some verses, but giving hints. For instance, this thunderous trumpet blasts. So this is something I would say, quote unquote, natural. Like before rain, there's always thunder. If you ask me why, I would say, well, because the clouds are charged with electricity. When they get closer to each other, then the electricity is going to jump from one to the other, and then the air is going to be condensed, and then this voice is going to be done, and this and that. I'm going to give you some, again, quote unquote, natural explanation for what's going on. But Quran is explaining it as the act of an angel, like an angel is blowing the trumpet as if. It's a totally different scene that's happening in front of me. I would say, well, what angel? Like it's naturally happening. What are you talking about? But by this, I am being confronted with a totally different perspective, and then it becomes by using, as if you like, this metaphorical language. When is a trumpet blown? To attract people's attention. Like if a servant of the king is going to make a declaration from the king, or let's say the king is going to distribute goods to the people, but they need to gather together to the city center. So they first make some or blow the trumpet, and then invite people to the center so that, oh, here is the declaration, or here are the goods that you are supposed to take from the king. Likewise, as if the thunders that happens right before the rain, like it's not a meaningless voice that's happening just because it happens, but rather it's a meaningful invitation of my attention. The creator is saying that, look, something important is going to happen. I'm going to shower my mercy over you, over plants, over innumerable species of insects and animals. So pay attention. Don't be ignorant about what's right now going to happen. So from my kingdom and my endless treasures, I'm now distributing you things that's going to satisfy your needs. So it becomes, with the language of the Quran, I'm being reminded of that. And when I see the universe, I say, yeah, now it makes perfect sense. And my ignorance and the nature, well, it's just the nature of clouds, gets shattered. And now I say, no, this is by choice. Making of that noise is by the creator's choice. And now I see it as an angel, an act of an angel, because it becomes a conscious act which speaks to me about my creator. It becomes a message deliverer. Previously, it was just a noise. Now it became a message. This thunder became a message to me, meaning wake up, something important is about to happen. So this is why it becomes an act of an angel, and it perfectly now fitting the picture of the existence that I am living in. And to uncover and reveal the obscure talisman of being and the strange riddle of the creation of the world, before which human philosophy and science have remained impotent. And this is the third part. To uncover and reveal the obscure talisman of being and the strange riddle of the creation of the world, before which human philosophy and science have remained impotent, is most surely only the wondrous work of a wonder worker like the Quran. Yeah. And of course, to the extent that I studied sciences or philosophies versus Quran, I can confirm truthfulness of this claim. And I guess this applies to all of us. But I guess even at the surface, multiplicity of the sciences and philosophies, and especially when it comes to philosophy, no one philosopher supporting the philosophy of another philosopher, gives me a strong conviction that if one model was perfectly fitting the universe, If the model that they come up with was perfectly fitting the universe, then we would say, well, this works. Let's go after it. But it does not. And the ones that I studied, I am seeing, as I was trying to say at the very beginning, one part of the riddle is apparently being solved, but since the rest of the riddle is left unexplored or filled with contradictions, I say, well, it doesn't make sense. I mean, I'm not just a human of joys, or I'm not just a human of intellect. Like what one other might say that, well, whatever you think is the meaning, it is the meaning. So it might be giving me the total control in which I am going to be the interpreter of the book of universe. I will decide what's right, what's wrong. I'm going to be the person to like or dislike. It's all about me. I am the center of this existence in the sense that I am, meaning I am the source of my own existence and my interpretations and everything that follows. Well, on the surface, this sounds okay. I say, well, it might make sense because relative to me, I talk about this existence, for instance. But then if I keep giving it a second thought, I say, well, but I do not own myself. If this was the case, I wouldn't die. I don't want to die. So it looks like I'm not in full control of this existence. So that ideology of, well, relative to whom the truth is being defined, it's all about you. Well, this ideology doesn't work for me either because it's not completely addressing my humanity. Then I would say, well, such philosophies are becoming impotent. So the one who can explain this existence without violating the balance can only be the maker of this existence. And when I say balance, just remember the word qadar also means balance. And everything in this existence, as Brother Adam was saying, this also applies to the creation. I observe that everything in this existence is happening within a balance. And I guess sciences are the testimony of that order, because if there was no order, there wouldn't be any generalization, so much so that there's going to be a science formed to study that order. Likewise, Quran is giving that, and speech of God must give that balanced explanation of the existence. So this balance is an important aspect. And just as an addendum to that, the messenger must be the person, just to give a how this pertains to the topic of messengerhood. Messenger must be the person who understands this balance and reflects it in his life within balance. To give a concrete example, eating food is a way that it's a way that you can appreciate your sustainer, because your sustainer wants to provide, and you say that, oh, so I must eat. But there is another name of the creator which says wise, another name which is which doesn't like wasting. So Prophet is the one who says, yes, I must eat to appreciate my maker, but also I must stop eating when it goes beyond the boundary of wisdom, when it starts becoming wasteful. So I cannot say, well, it's all good. Whatever you eat, eat. As long as you offer your thanks to the creator, it's going to be okay. But this is violating the boundaries. So messenger must be the person who is going to respect the boundary in the creation in human life, in human form. So this is why sunnah means, I'm just going a little bit off topic here, but sunnah means, the practice of the messenger means, and must mean, I would expect this from the messenger, to live imbalance within the boundaries of all the names of the creator, not on a single name of the creator. Maybe a philosopher is going on the extreme for one name of the creator. One of them might be saying, oh, there has to be justice in everything, and then cannot find an explanation for the problem of evil, let's say. But once I observe everything within the balance of all the names, as the creator is a balance of all the names of the creator manifesting within balance, same should apply to my understanding and also how I reflect it in my life. And as much as I understand, sunnah of the messenger means that, and it must mean that. This is why I am looking for a perfect balance in the life of the messenger as a signature of messengerhood. And I close the parentheses there. This was a little bit off topic. Okay. If you have any comments, please chime in. If not, I'm moving forward to avoid awkward silences. If the Quran's verses are considered carefully and fairly, again, the author is highlighting this. If the Quran's verses are considered carefully and fairly, and by that statement, I am also understanding that if you are not careful and if you're not fair, yeah, definitely you can come up with any sort of injustice or like confusion or contradiction within the scripture itself. But if you're careful, and by careful, I understand as whose speech is that, for example, and how can I look for what shall I expect from speech of creator? So bring all these into the picture. If I am assuming from the very beginning that, well, this is speech of a man because it sounds like speech of man, like it's in human language, then I'm already starting with a counter assumption to the claim of the book. So there is no way now I can confirm its truthfulness because my initial assumption is it's a lie, for example, just to give an example of how I might be going wrong at the very beginning. So this is why I guess author keeps repeating this, considering verses carefully and fairly. It will be seen that they do not resemble a gradual chain of thought following one or two aims like other books. For the Quran's manner is sudden and instantaneous. It is inspired on the moment. Its mark is that all its aspects arrive together but independently from distant places, a most serious and important discourse which comes singly and concisely. So I would be happy to hear your help in that part. So yes, Sister Saira, go ahead.
Yeah, so how I see this is, you mean the highlighted part is sudden and instantaneous?
Yeah, in general, the entire paragraph. So he is comparing the other books, which has a gradual chain of thought with following one or two aims. He says Quran is not like that, but its manner is sudden and instantaneous. What does he mean by that?
Yeah. So let's look at Quran then very quickly. Not a very long passage, but a short one. Within a matter of 4 ayats, there is a transition. So I'm looking at Surah Yasin, and let's say I begin with ayat 42, where Allah Ta'ala says, and we made similar things for them to ride in. If we wish, we can drown them, and there is no one to help them. They cannot be saved. Only by our mercy can they be reprieved to enjoy life for a while. Yet, when they are told, beware of what lies before and behind you, so that you may be given mercy, they ignore every single sign that comes to them from their Lord. And when they are told, give to others out of what God has provided for you, the disbelievers say to the believers, why should we feed those that God could feed if he wanted? You must be deeply misguided. And then the last ayah here, 48, and they say, when will this promise be fulfilled if what you say is true, but all they are waiting for is a single blast that will overtake them while they are still arguing. They will have no time to make bequests, nor will they have the chance to return to their own people. And then the trumpet will sound and all. The idea here is that Allah Ta'ala starts with that Allah Ta'ala made a lot of things like animals, and we can use them and we can eat them, and there are very many, we can sit on them. And then if we wish, we can drown them. Allah Ta'ala's power is showing. So there is a distinct presentation of that I gave you something and I can also take away by destroying it. And there is no one to help them. They cannot be saved. Only by our mercy can they be reprieved to enjoy life for a while. And then Allah Ta'ala goes on to tell people that yet when they are told, beware of the lies behind you or before you, so that you may be given mercy, they ignore every single sign that comes from their God. So again, transition here, coming from the bounty presentation to having the power of taking it back, to then now switching over to the idea that what lies behind you and in front of you, if you're not wary of it, if you're not aware of it, Allah Ta'ala's mercy can be there. But if you ignore the signs, then and then they are told, give to others out of what God has provided for you. The believers say to the disbelievers say to the believers, why should we feed? Even though here Allah Ta'ala is giving us a contrast between the believers' act of giving, but disbelievers intercepting them and asking this question in a mocking way, why should we feed those that God could feed if he wanted? And then Allah Ta'ala says, you must be deeply misguided, right? So the transition right then and there between the rhetorical dialogue and then Allah's answer, you must be deeply misguided. And then the ayah 48 is, and they say, when will this promise be fulfilled? So sudden transition to Qiyamah. If what you say is true, but all they are waiting for is a single blast that will overtake them while they are still arguing, and they will have no time to make bequests. So Allah Ta'ala is giving the scenario, the possible interactions in those scenario, and the repercussions of that scenario. That's how I understand Quran most of the time. Jazakallah khair.
Jazakallah khairan. Shahrani family.
Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, regarding the sudden and instantaneous manner of the Quran, this is an interesting point that is being emphasized, alhamdulillah, that I'm seeing Imam Nursi mention this, because it's what's interesting about this is that many anti-Muslim bigots and anti-Muslim Orientalists like to comment on the Quran as being very irregular, very difficult to read and follow, just kind of ideas floating in various places and incoherent. And so when they read the Quran, they have this experience that they are sharing from what they say is, this doesn't make a lot of sense. It's just a bunch of meshed up things, and they might be like, oh, like there are certain parts of it that have some kind of a theme, but then it just jumps from story to story, and the story of Musa is mentioned so many different times, and it's just extremely disorganized. It's interesting because it's very true that the inspiration is momentary. And I find it very difficult to believe that anyone can read the Quran and not question whether or not this is a revelation from Allah in their hearts. And they can arrive at such criticism if they were fair. And I'm using the word fair here because this is what's translated. But really, from my perspective, it's about whether or not they're honest and whether or not they're sincere and whether or not they really care. Because just as was pointed out by the sister in the ayah, some people are so self-absorbed, so misguided, that they approach the Quran with nothing but evil intent. And even if there's a little spark in their heart, they don't let the light through. They shut it off immediately. And their only approach is to look for something critical. Now, regarding what this means for me, mashallah, it's a wonderful thing that the Quran, it's not organized. It's an entire body in itself. It's not organized in a manner that's conventional, the way a human would write a book. It's very unconventional in that respect, in that it's in every teaching or revelation, there is a connection to a different level of existence, which is unlike other books. And so when it's mentioned that it's sudden and instantaneous, what comes to mind is the word hidayah. There's hidayah. It's a multi-dimensional experience. It's not something like a typical history book, like the Bible. The Bible, alhamdulillah, does have many points where if you're reading it, you can sense tawheed, and you can sense many spiritual enlightening things. But very unlike that, it's not written. It's kind of like a human history of revelation or existence that's been passed down and translated and mistranslated and corrupted over years. So that sudden and instantaneous element for me is the multidimensional element of when you read the Quran sincerely. We will cry when we read the Quran sincerely. We will shake. We will experience something beyond us. And that is the sudden and instantaneous thing, because that is coming from our Lord instantaneously, suddenly, from our kind of ephemeral, mundane type of existence. We're being pulled out of this world into of this world of illusion that we make for ourselves into reality. It's pulling us out into reality. And it's really important here to mention also the recitation of the Quran paired with this to achieve this goal. Not just because the translation alone can do this. The translation alone can do this, but with the rhythm and the changes in tone and the beauty that comes in the recitation, paired with the deep meaning, it is quite sudden and instantaneous, sudden and instantaneously remarkable. Thank you.
Jazakallah khairan. Thank you for sharing. And maybe we can also see what author says in here in the example that he gives at the end, because it starts with by the star when it goes down. Gives the example of a star and a star setting, and it seems to be totally unrelated on the surface what it follows next. Your companion is neither astray nor being misled, nor does he say aught of his own desire. This is the swearing word. The creator is saying that by the star, and this is supposed to be the evidence for what's next, because I'm not sure if this is true or not. Then Quran says, well, look at this one, then you're going to be sure about it. So for instance, if I am being accused of doing something and you are not sure if I'm right or wrong, So if I might really have done that wrong thing, let's say, then I say I need to come up with an evidence to prove otherwise. And this evidence needs to be clear for you to clarify me from the thing that I'm being excused of, because this part is unclear. The part that I am being accused with is unclear. So it needs to be replaced with something that's already clear to you. And this verse is starting with stars and saying that by the star when it goes down, and saying that since this is the case, then your companion is neither astray nor being misled, nor does he say, oh, out of his own desire. It's no less than revelation inspired. So it's quite interesting and seems to be, I think it might be applying what he says in here is applicable to even these verses that he gives here. So it's not like coming up with one, so there's one or two aims and then there's this linear progression, but it's more some instantaneous idea is coming out there and it's becoming a proof for what comes next, and or multiple different proofs are coming, and then you combine all of them as the aim is now at the center. So to draw a picture, it's not like linear, but it's like a star shaped. Your point is at the center, but multiple proofs are coming from the periphery. So inshallah, when we come to this verse, again, we can talk about it. And the author actually does this in his writings when he is interpreting the Quran. Sometimes he is taking part of verses. Sometimes he takes an entire verse. Yes, it's also needed that sometimes there's a flow within verses. So you start from beginning and follow multiple verses and then say, oh yeah, these are the points. You can follow a linear progression of verses, but the author is as if to show that, well, even the parts of verses by themselves would match with something in you or in the existence, which is an interesting approach and is aligned with his claim in here. He's saying that sudden and instantaneous and inspired on the moment. So, and my take here very quickly, since we are coming to end of our time for today, up in here, he was talking about rending the veils of habitual and commonplace, for instance. So this is when the Quran says by the star when it goes down, this reminds me of what the author is saying in here, because darkness is like a veil to the sky. And stars in the sky, if you like, you can imagine them to be like as if there is light behind the scenes, but a very dark veil is put in front of them. And somebody put a hole in that veil just to show me that, oh, the light is gushing forth from that small hole in the veil now. So now I can see that behind the veil is light actually. So all the stars, so in this metaphorical explanation, I would say, every star is the news of light behind the veil. And every verse of the Quran is such stars. It is, if you like, holes poked to the veil of causality or nature. And it's tearing up this veil to me, saying that behind these veils are luminous truths. And every verse becomes as such. And when I read it as such, when the Quran says, by the star when it goes down, and I read the verses of Quran as those stars, each verse, and as if now Quran is saying that, look at the verses themselves. Don't you see that it is tearing down the veil of darkness or veil of habitual and commonplace in front of your eyes and showing you the truth? Which speech of man is able to do that for you? This itself, the fact that Quran is revealing the truth to you, and removing the veil of causes or the nature habitual from your eyes is a evidence in the first place that it's not speech of that man, and that man who is speaking of those words, the messenger, is telling the absolute truth to you. It's not like, oh, he's just jumbling words in his mouth. No, this is the most truth that you can reach. Doesn't the truth itself testify for that? So your companion is neither astray nor being misled, nor does he say anything out of his own desire. It is no less than revelation inspired. Then actually this first sentence truly becomes an evidence for what is going to come next. So I say, I bear witness that this is speech of the Creator. So beautiful, alhamdulillah. Now I'm reading this last paragraph. Yes, who is there apart from the universe's creator that could give a discourse concerned to this degree with the universe and the creator of the universe? Who could step beyond his mark to an infinite degree and make the all-glorious creator speak according to his own whims, then make the universe speak the truth? Meaning, let's say I am just a undergrad, I have some, of course this is an example, but a bad example, but all examples are bad. Like it can never match the truth itself, otherwise it wouldn't be truth, so take this into account. So let's say I have some undergrad education about, I don't know, psychology, or even read one book or two books about psychology. Then there's another person who is a professor who had multiple publications and everything about psychology. And then in an environment, I start pretending as if I'm a professor of psychology. I start speaking as if I'm that person. What would happen? So with my limited and very little knowledge on psychology, how can I make up there are going to be multiple gaps and surely many contradictions when I start talking about psychology, because I know nothing about it, very little about it. And now the author in here is saying that we are talking about speech of the creator of this universe. So who must, clearly looking at the existence, I see that the one who is creating everything, like think about complex creation, everything is complex, but DNA, let's say, the one who is able to create that DNA as it is and able to create human as it is, how can I pretend as if my speech is his speech? There's no comparison of my knowledge relative to his knowledge. So Shahrani family, please go ahead.
Just a quick comment, and maybe this was made, but we got distracted by the kids, but and that was keeping in mind also and emphasizing the history of Quranic revelation, and that is that it was revealed in pieces within contexts for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. So I think the fact that it was revealed piecewise, sudden and instantaneously. So for the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, it was a sudden thing. He didn't know, am I going to get a revelation at this time? Like we're having a halakha at 6:30, for example. There's no time. There's no like logging in, sitting down, preparing. It would just instantaneously and suddenly come to him from above. And the fact that these collections of the collection of revelations in the form of the Mus'haf or Quran that we read today is congruent and sudden and instantaneous for us as well when we experience it, is quite amazing. Thank you.
Yes, this is also an important point for this instantaneous and sudden. Okay. So I continue from here. Who could step beyond his mark to an infinite degree and make the all-glorious creator speak according to his own whims, then make the universe speak the truth? Yes, in the Quran, the universe's maker is seen to be speaking and making others speak most seriously and truthfully. and in elevated and true fashion. Yeah. This makes me remember the verse that Sister Saira was referring to. Like, if this Quran was revealed to top of a mountain, it's going to crumble. So as if Quran in here is making the mountain speak also, in a sense, saying that if that Quran was revealed on me, I was going to get crumbled. So, and it makes perfect sense, actually. When I apply revelation to the mountain, I realize that the mountain disappears and it crumbles into pieces. It simply becomes just creation. Kun, the command kun in action. No mountain is left in front of my eyes. Once I apply revelation and the perspective of revelation to the mountain, I simply see kun, the command kun, and to be. And I am seeing that the mountain is being created in front of my eyes right now. This mountain is not, or it was created in billions of years ago in whatever geological age, and now it is there. No, once I see it from the lens of the Quran, the revelation, it becomes a speech. Every bits and pieces of that mountain becomes, oh, I am being created independently right now. And it crumbles into dust. This might be one way to take it, but I see that once Quran makes the universe speak, it perfectly fits the creation that's happening. And who can go beyond his or her mark and to an infinite degree and make God speak from my mouth and also make the universe speak on the name of the creator. I mean, it's beyond my capacity. Even I cannot do that for my mom. Just thinking about it, to make her, I would speak from my mother's mouth. Eventually you will realize that, well, Yusuf, you're making it up. Your mom would never say such a thing. Just, I'm giving that stupid example to show how much I am beyond speaking in the name of the creator by myself. There is no sign at all to suggest imitation. He speaks and makes speak. The creator speaks and makes the creation speak in the Quran. If, to suppose the impossible, someone like Musaylima was to step beyond his mark to an infinite degree and by way of imitation make the all-glorious creator, the sublime and majestic one, speak according to his own ideas and the universe as well, there certainly would be thousands of signs of imitation and indications of falsehood. For when the contemptible assume the manner of lofty, for the lower one assumes the manner of a higher one, their every action shows up their pretense. So consider carefully these verses which proclaim this fact with an oath. By the star, when it goes down, your companion is neither astray nor being misled, nor does he say out of his own desire. It is no less than revelation inspired. So I shared my comments about this part already. So any closing comments, remarks, please go ahead. We are coming to the end of our time for today, but I would be happy to hear your comments. Okay.
I think much of Quran talks about the heavenly creations, then our life cycle, then the life cycles of plants. Even in Surah Yasin, I just read again that, and who is it that who taught you to kindle fire from green trees? And who is it that who keeps the birds afloat in the sky? And who is it who keeps the ship moving on the waters? All of that juxtaposed with the dialogues between or narrations about older generations of humans and their messengers that came to them, and those who were disbelievers versus those who were believers, those who were munafiq, those who were mushrik, those who were kafar, those who were standing by the messengers, and then how Allah Ta'ala treated or punished accordingly. And then going back to Allah Ta'ala's own appraisal of Quran, appraisal of himself, appraisal of the Malaika, appraisal of the books, scriptures, then going back to minute things, the speck of the date stone, the moon, the revolution of the planets, the night and sky transitioning in multiple ways. Allah Ta'ala gave understanding of that, how the darkness comes from light, how night is supposed to be for restfulness. What I see is as a teacher who is extremely focused on making sure that multiple different ways the same idea is made understood by those who he wills for them to understand it. And then in the very I should say, narration, he is encouraging people to also see that be on guard with your understanding or lack of understanding, because you might be missing the signs that he has put all around us. So in that sense, inshallah, this meeting here today is making me now more fervently look for ways to interact with Quranic ayats and understand it from the perspective that inshallah Allah Ta'ala intends for us all to learn, for me to learn. Jazakallah khair, Brother Yusuf, and everybody.
Jazakallah khair. Alhamdulillah. May Allah make us benefit more from this speech and benefit from guidance, inshallah. آمين. سبحانك لا علم لنا إلا ما علمتنا إنك أنت العليم الحكيم وآخر دعواهم أن